I'll never forget the moment my world shattered. I was sitting in a bank parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, listening to a stranger tell me that my entire future had been stolen. $199,000. Gone. Vanished. My hands started shaking so violently I dropped my keys 3 times trying to get out of my car. I called my mother, expecting shock, outrage, maybe even tears. Instead, she said 5 words that changed everything. "Oh, I was going to tell you." Not sorry, not panicked, just casual, like she'd borrowed my sweater without asking, not destroyed my life. That phone call ended my family. It turned me into someone I never thought I'd become, and it taught me the most painful lesson anyone can learn. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. My name is Lily Anderson, and this is the story of how I sued my own mother and sister, lost half my family, and discovered who I really was. This is a story about betrayal, justice, and the moment I finally chose myself. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a house that looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence, well-maintained lawn, holiday decorations that won neighborhood awards. My dad, Richard, was an accountant who worked 60-hour weeks. My mom, Catherine, was a paralegal who acted like she ran a Fortune 500 company instead of filing papers at a small law firm. And then there was my sister, Jessica, 3 years older than me and everything I wasn't. Beautiful, confident, magnetic. She was homecoming queen, prom queen, student body president. She got a full scholarship to Oregon State. Everywhere she went, people loved her, and my parents, they worshipped her. I wasn't jealous, at least I told myself I wasn't. I was just different, quieter, more practical. While Jessica was out conquering the social world, I was the one who remembered to pay bills, who helped Dad with taxes, who made sure Mom's car got its oil changed. I was responsible, low maintenance, the daughter who never caused problems. At family dinners, my parents would spend an hour talking about Jessica's latest achievement and 5 minutes asking me how work was going. I'd learned to accept it. That's just how our family worked. But my grandmother, Helen, saw me, really saw me. She was my dad's mother, a tiny woman with iron gray hair and hands that were always dusted with flour. Every Saturday, I'd drive across town to visit her. I'd help her grocery shop, clean her house, organize her medications, but mostly we'd just sit in her sunny yellow kitchen and talk. She'd tell me stories about surviving the Depression, about meeting my grandfather at a USO dance during World War II, about raising 4 kids on almost nothing. And she taught me to bake. Apple pie with a lattice crust, chocolate chip cookies that were crispy on the edges and soft in the middle, sourdough bread that took 3 days to make. Those Saturday afternoons saved me. They were proof that someone in my family actually cared. When I was 19, working part-time at a coffee shop and taking community college classes I could barely afford, I told her my dream. I wanted to open a bakery, a real one, with fresh bread every morning and wedding cakes on the weekends, and that smell of butter and vanilla that makes you feel safe. She grabbed both my hands across the kitchen table. Her eyes were shining. "Lily, that's perfect for you. You have the talent, you just need the opportunity." I laughed it off, told her it was impossible, that I'd never have enough money, that girls like me didn't get dreams like that. She squeezed my hands tighter. "Promise me you'll do it. Promise me you won't give up." I promised her. 2 years later, she had a stroke and died in the hospital with me holding her hand. I was 21 years old, and I cried so hard at her funeral I made myself sick. 3 weeks after we buried Grandma Helen, my family sat in a lawyer's office that smelled like old books and furniture polish. Mr. Patterson, her estate attorney, was a gray-haired man who looked like he'd been practicing law since the Civil War. He walked us through the will methodically. Most of her money and possessions went to my dad, which made sense. But then he pulled out a different document, and everything changed. "Your mother established a separate trust for Lily," he said, looking directly at me. "She wanted to ensure you had the resources to start your business." The room went dead silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Mr. Patterson continued reading. The trust contains $199,000 earmarked specifically for business startup costs, equipment, real estate, initial operating expenses. Lily can access these funds when she turns 25, or earlier if she demonstrates readiness to begin her business and receives approval from the trustee. Then he looked at my mother. Mrs. Anderson, you've been named as trustee. You'll manage these funds until Lily is ready to use them. I couldn't breathe. Nearly $200,000. For me. For my bakery. Grandma Helen had actually done it. She'd given me my chance. Tears started streaming down my face right there in the lawyer's office. My dad hugged me and whispered, "She loved you so much." My mom's smile looked painted on. Jessica glanced up from her phone long enough to say, "Wow, lucky," in a tone that made it clear she thought I didn't deserve it. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I had hope. I had a future. I had proof that someone believed in me. For 3 years, I worked like a woman possessed. I got a job as a pastry chef at a high-end restaurant, working 12-hour shifts that left me so exhausted I'd fall asleep on the bus home. I saved every penny I could, living in a tiny studio apartment with no heat and a refrigerator that only worked half the time. I took online courses in business management, accounting, marketing. I wrote a business plan that I revised 17 times. I researched neighborhoods, studied demographics, analyzed foot traffic patterns. I wanted to be ready. I wanted to make Grandma Helen proud. I talked about the bakery constantly. At Sunday dinners with my family, I'd update everyone on my progress. I found an amazing supplier for organic flour, I'd say, or I've been experimenting with a new croissant recipe that I think could be a signature item. My dad would nod encouragingly and ask practical questions about profit margins. My mom would say, "That's nice, honey," and immediately change the subject to Jessica's job or Jessica's boyfriend or Jessica's vacation plans. It hurt, but I was used to it. I had my plan. I had my inheritance. I had my future mapped out in detail. Nothing could stop me now. Jessica got engaged when I was 23. Her fiancé, Brad, was a finance guy with an expensive watch and a laugh that sounded like a car alarm. They'd been dating for 2 years. I didn't think much about their relationship. I was too focused on my own life, my own dreams. I had no idea their engagement was about to destroy everything I'd worked for. I had no idea that while I was saving every dollar and planning my future, my mother was planning something else entirely. I had no idea that the 2 people I'd trusted most in the world were about to commit the ultimate betrayal. 6 months ago, I found it. The perfect location. A corner unit in a renovated building in Portland's Pearl District. Exposed brick walls, massive windows that flooded the space with light, original hardwood floors, high ceilings with vintage tin tiles. I could see it so clearly. Display cases full of pastries, small tables by the windows, the smell of fresh bread greeting customers every morning. The rent was higher than I'd budgeted for, but the landlord loved my concept. There was just one problem. I wasn't the only person interested. The landlord told me he had 3 other applicants, all with more experience and bigger bank accounts. If I wanted it, I needed to move fast. I needed to access my inheritance. I called Pacific Trust Bank, my hands actually shaking with excitement. A woman named Karen answered. I explained who I was, gave her my grandmother's account information, told her I was ready to start the process of accessing the trust funds. "I have my business plan ready, my lease agreement drafted, everything," I said, my words tumbling over each other. "I just need to start the withdrawal process." There was a pause, a long pause. Then Karen said, "Can you hold for just a moment?" She put me on hold. I sat there in my car outside the building I wanted to rent, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. This was it. This was finally happening. After 3 years of working and saving and planning, I was about to become a business owner. Grandma Helen would be so proud. Karen came back on the line. Her voice had changed. It was careful now, professional but cautious. "Miss Anderson, I'm looking at the account history, and I'm showing that this trust account was closed." The words didn't make sense. "What do you mean, closed?" The account was closed 14 months ago. All funds were withdrawn by the trustee and the account was terminated. March 15th, 14 months ago, right after Jessica got engaged. No. This couldn't be happening. Are you absolutely certain? My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from somewhere far away. I'm certain, Miss Anderson. Would you like me to email you the withdrawal documentation? Yes, please, send everything. I gave her my email address with shaking hands. My phone buzzed immediately. There it was, a scanned document with my mother's signature, bold and confident, authorizing the removal of every penny of my future. I called my mother. I don't even remember pressing the buttons. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Lily, hi, sweetheart. What's going on? The sound of her acting normal, acting like everything was fine, made me want to scream. Mom, I just got off the phone with Pacific Trust. Complete silence, the kind of silence that confirms guilt. Then, in a completely different voice, flat, almost annoyed, she said, "Oh, just that, just oh," like I'd caught her eating my leftovers, not stealing my entire future.
Mom, they told me you withdrew all the money from Grandma Helen's trust. They told me you closed the account 14 months ago. She sighed. Actually sighed, like I was inconveniencing her by bringing this up. Yeah, I was planning to talk to you about that. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Planning to talk to me? When? After it was too late to do anything about it? Don't use that tone with me, Lily. I'm still your mother. Then act like it. Where is my money? It's not technically your money. As the trustee, I had discretionary authority over those funds. I had every legal right to make decisions about their use. Blood was roaring in my ears. What did you do with it? Another sigh. Another pause. Then, so casual it made me want to vomit. Jessica needed help with her wedding. You know how expensive weddings are these days. She and Brad wanted something really special, and your father and I couldn't afford to give her the kind of wedding she deserved. So I used the trust funds to help her out. It was a family decision. A family decision? A family decision that nobody told me about. A family decision made with my money. You gave my inheritance to Jessica for her wedding? My voice was shaking. You gave our family money to your sister for an important milestone? She's only going to get married once, Lily. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. And my business, my future, my dream, that's not important? You're 24 years old. You have your entire life to save money and start a business later. Jessica needed the money right now. I was crying now. Ugly crying in my car in a public parking lot where strangers were walking past and pretending not to notice. That money was specifically left to me by Grandma Helen. She wanted me to have it, for my bakery. You stole it from me. My mother's voice turned to ice. I did not steal anything. I made a decision as the trustee that benefited this family. And frankly, Lily, I think you're being incredibly selfish right now. Your sister needed help, and family helps family. That's what we do. Did you tell Jessica where the money came from? Silence. Long, damning silence. Mom, did Jessica know you were using my inheritance to pay for her wedding? More silence. Then, quietly, that's none of your concern. She knew. Oh my God, she knew, didn't she? You both knew, and neither of you told me. My mother's voice was pure steel now. This conversation is over. You need to calm down and think very carefully about what you're saying. You're talking about destroying this family over money. You already destroyed it. You stole from me. You both stole from me. Call me when you're ready to apologize for this ridiculous tantrum. And she hung up. She actually hung up on me. I sat in that parking lot for 2 hours. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen and my head was pounding. I'd lost the bakery location. The landlord called while I was sitting there and told me he'd rented it to someone else. But that didn't even matter anymore. The location was just a building. What I'd lost was so much bigger. My mother had stolen from me. Grandma Helen trusted her, and she'd betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. She'd taken money that was specifically, explicitly, undeniably meant for me, and she'd given it to my sister for a party. And Jessica had known. They both knew. They conspired together, and neither of them had said a word to me. I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call first. I didn't give them warning. I just showed up. It was a Sunday afternoon. I knew they'd all be there. I walked in, I still had a key, and found them in the living room. Dad was watching golf, Mom was on her laptop, and Jessica was there too, flipping through a bridal magazine even though she'd been married for over a year. Perfect. "We need to talk," I said. My mom looked up, saw my face, red and swollen from crying, and her expression hardened immediately. "Lily, if you're here to continue your hysterics from earlier..." "Hysterics? Hysterics? You stole $200,000 from me and you think I'm being hysterical?" My dad sat up, confused. "What's going on?" "Ask your wife. Ask her what she did with Grandma Helen's trust fund, the one Grandma specifically left to me for my business, the one that was supposed to be my future." My dad looked at my mom. Something in his expression shifted. "Catherine, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you didn't take money that Helen specifically left for Lily and give it to Jessica." My mom's facade finally cracked. She was defensive now, angry. I was the trustee. I had the legal authority to make decisions about that money, and I decided it was better used helping Jessica start her married life than sitting in an account for some pipe dream bakery that Lily might never actually open. Pipe dream? She called my life's work, my grandmother's faith in me, a pipe dream. "How much did her wedding cost?" I asked quietly. Jessica rolled her eyes. "That's none of your business." "How much, Jessica?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Like 180,000 or something, but it was worth every penny. It was the most beautiful day of my life." $180,000? Nearly my entire inheritance, spent on flowers that died in a week, and food that was gone in an hour, and a party that people would forget in a month. Spent on one day, while my future, my dreams, my chance to honor Grandma Helen's memory, my opportunity to build something lasting, disappeared. "I'll never forgive you, either of you, for this." My voice was steady now, calm, cold. My mother actually laughed. "Oh, please, you'll get over it in a few months. Family is forever, Lily. You can't stay mad forever." "You're right, family is forever, but you stopped being my family the moment you stole from me, and you're going to regret this." "Is that a threat?" "No, it's a promise. I'm suing you both." The room exploded. Jessica started yelling, my mom started yelling, my dad just stood there looking like he might pass out. I walked to the door, then turned back. "You had a choice. You could have asked me. You could have been honest. We could have figured something out together. But you chose to lie and steal instead, so now you get to deal with the consequences." I walked out. My dad followed me to my car. "Lily, wait, please. I didn't know about any of this, I swear." I believed him. "Then you should have been paying attention, Dad." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get my money back, and I'm going to make sure they can never do this to anyone else again." The next morning, I called an estate lawyer named David Chen. His consultation fee was $200 I couldn't afford, but I maxed out my credit card and paid it anyway. When I walked into his office and told him everything, he leaned back in his chair and said 6 words that changed my life. "This is textbook breach of fiduciary duty." He explained it to me like I was 5. As trustee, my mother had a legal obligation, a fiduciary duty to act in my best interest, not Jessica's. The trust documents were explicit. The money was for me, for business purposes only. Using it for anything else, especially to benefit someone else, was a violation of that duty. Can I sue her? You can, and you should. We'll sue your mother for breach of fiduciary duty. We'll also name your sister as a co-defendant for unjust enrichment. She received money she had no legal right to receive. I hired him that day. Took out $3,000 on my credit card for his retainer.
3 weeks later, we filed the lawsuit in Multnomah County Circuit Court. Reading the complaint was surreal. There it was, in cold legal language. My family's betrayal laid out in numbered paragraphs. We were asking the court to order them to repay the full trust amount, plus interest, plus my legal fees, plus punitive damages for their conduct. The day the papers were served, World War III erupted. My phone exploded with calls and texts. My mother called me a traitor. Jessica called me vindictive and cruel. My aunt, uncle, and cousins all weighed in, most of them telling me I was destroying the family over money. Only my dad stayed quiet. He sent me one text. "I'm so sorry. I love you." I didn't respond. The lawsuit dragged on for 14 months. Discovery, depositions, motions, delays. During my mother's deposition, David questioned her for 6 hours. She insisted she'd had the right to use the money however she wanted as trustee. But when David showed her the actual trust documents, which stated in plain English that the funds were for my business startup and nothing else, she started to crumble. She tried to argue that helping Jessica was indirectly helping the whole family. Even the court reporter looked skeptical. Jessica's deposition was worse. She showed up in designer clothes, acting like the whole thing was beneath her. When David asked if she'd known the money came from my trust, she said, "I knew it came from a family trust, but I assumed Lily was fine with it." Then David showed her the text messages. We'd subpoenaed her phone records, and there it was in black and white. 3 weeks before her wedding, Jessica had texted our mother, "Are you sure Lily won't find out about the trust money? I don't want drama at my wedding." Mom had responded, "She won't find out until you're married and it's too late. Don't worry." That text message destroyed their entire defense. We went to trial. It lasted 3 days. Day 1, David presented our case. He showed the trust documents, the bank records, the text messages. He called an expert witness who testified that my mother's actions were a clear breach of fiduciary duty. Day 2, my mother testified. She cried on the stand, talked about how much she loved both her daughters. But when David cross-examined her, she fell apart. He asked her if she'd read the trust documents. She said yes. He asked if she understood the money was for me specifically. She hesitated. He asked her to explain the text message where she told Jessica I wouldn't find out until it was too late. She couldn't. She just cried harder. Jessica testified too. She tried to play the victim, talked about how excited she'd been for her wedding, how grateful she'd been for the help. But David was relentless. "Did it occur to you that your happiness was coming at the expense of your sister's future?" he asked. She didn't answer. Then I testified. David asked me about Grandma Helen, about our relationship, about my dreams. I told the truth. I said it felt like my family had looked at my dreams and decided they didn't matter. I said it felt like I was worth less than a party. I cried on the stand. I couldn't help it. After 3 days, the judge said he'd issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Those were the longest 2 weeks of my life. I barely slept. I couldn't eat. I kept thinking about what would happen if I lost, if the court said my mother had been right, that she'd had the authority to do what she did. It would mean Grandma Helen's wishes didn't matter. It would mean I didn't matter. But then the ruling came. The judge ruled in my favor, completely, unequivocally. He said my mother had committed a clear and egregious breach of fiduciary duty. He said Jessica had been unjustly enriched. He ordered them to repay $199,000 plus 3 years of interest, $217,000 total, plus my legal fees of $26,000, total $243,000. My mother and Jessica didn't have $243,000. They had to take out loans. My mother had to get a second mortgage on my parents' house. Jessica had to sell her car, her jewelry, furniture. Their comfortable lives became suddenly brutally hard. They had to get second jobs. And I felt nothing. No sympathy, no guilt. Nothing. My dad filed for divorce from my mom 2 months after the judgment. He called me crying. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you," he said. "I should have stopped her." "I know, Dad. Can we have dinner sometime?" Yeah, I'd like that. The extended family was split. Half of them apologized once they saw the court documents and realized what actually happened. My aunt sent me a long email saying she was sorry for not believing me. My uncle sent me a check for $5,000 with a note, "For your bakery. I'm sorry we failed you." But the other half, they doubled down. They still post on Facebook about family loyalty and forgiveness. They still think I'm the villain. I've blocked most of them. Jessica's marriage fell apart within a year. Brad had a gambling problem she'd been hiding. Once the money was gone and reality set in, their marriage collapsed. She moved back in with our mother. I heard about it through my dad. I felt nothing. My mother still hasn't apologized, not once. She pays me back in court-ordered installments, but she still tells people I ruined the family over money. I don't care anymore. She can tell herself whatever story helps her sleep at night. It took another year to collect enough money to actually open my bakery, but I did it. 6 months ago, I signed a lease on a small space in a different neighborhood. Not as fancy as the original location, but it has character. It has heart. I spent 3 months renovating, painting, installing equipment. My dad helped me on weekends. It felt like we were rebuilding our relationship, one painted wall at a time. I named it Rosie's, after Grandma Helen. Her full name was Rose Helen Anderson, but everyone called her Rosie. On opening day, I put her photo behind the counter. She's young in the picture, maybe 25, standing in front of her own bakery that she and my grandfather ran for 30 years. She's smiling, looking so proud. I look at that photo every day.
The bakery is doing well. Not great, startups are hard, but we're profitable. I hired 2 part-time employees. We've gotten amazing reviews. People keep coming back. I make Grandma Rose's apple pie, and it's our best seller. An older woman came in last week, tried it, and told me it reminded her of her grandmother's pie. She brought her whole family back 3 days later. That's what makes all of this worth it. People still ask if I regret suing my family. My answer never changes. Absolutely not. Not for 1 second. Here's what I learned. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you without consequences. It doesn't mean pretending something didn't happen. It doesn't mean letting someone off the hook because they're family or because time has passed. Real forgiveness requires genuine remorse, real change, actual effort to make things right. My mother and sister never did any of that. They stole from me, lied to me, and when caught, played the victims. They never said, "We were wrong. We hurt you. We're sorry." So no, I don't forgive them. I also learned you can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. My whole life, I'd been the accommodating one, the one who didn't make waves, the one who accepted scraps. But Grandma Rose left me that money because she saw me. She knew I'd been overlooked my whole life. She wanted me to know I mattered. When my mother stole that money, she was saying, "You don't matter. Jessica matters more." I couldn't accept that, so I fought back, and I won. The last thing I learned, chosen family is real family. My dad and I rebuilt our relationship, but the people who really showed up were my friends, coworkers who listened to me cry, neighbors who helped me move, customers who became regulars because they wanted to support me. Those are my people now, not the relatives who chose my mother's comfort over my pain, the people who actually care. So here I am, 26 years old, running my own bakery, living my dream. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, I'm just a woman who bakes bread and makes pie and tries to be kind. But I'm happy, really, genuinely happy, and I'm proud. Proud I had the courage to fight. Proud I didn't back down when everyone said I was wrong. Proud I honored my grandmother's memory by refusing to let anyone take her gift away. If someone in your family has hurt you, stolen from you, betrayed you, used you, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to protect yourself, even if it means cutting ties with people you love. You don't owe anyone forgiveness. You don't owe anyone access to your life. You owe yourself safety, respect, and dignity. And if your family can't give you those things, they don't deserve to be in your life. It's that simple.
Some bridges are meant to be burned. Some families aren't worth keeping. My name is Lily Anderson. This is my story, and I don't regret a single thing. Thank you for listening.